Hi, it's David Avrin with the Customer Experience Advantage podcast. So, how does a marine biologist with secret clearance through the U.S. State Department become a top expert and trainer on sales strategy and scalability? Well, my guest today on the podcast is Jason Cutter. He's the author of Reasons Not to Focus on the Sales Experience, along with other books. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about using authentic persuasion to go from order taker to quota-breaker. I'm talking to Jason Cutter on the Customer Experience Advantage podcast. I'm David Avrin. Back in 30 seconds.
You're listening to the Customer Experience Advantage podcast with David Avrin, featuring candid conversations with some of the most influential leaders in business today. Sit back and listen in, or feel free to watch the video version online. This is the Customer Experience Advantage podcast, and here's David Avrin.
Hey, thanks and welcome to the podcast today. Once again, if you want to watch the video version, go to my website at davidavrin.com. It's on YouTube as well. And of course, we're on all of the audio platforms. I got great hair today, so I think it's a good time to watch the video version, but it's up to you. I had a colleague who they did the analytics, and most people listen to their podcast on their ear pods, which was interesting. And they came to recognize that most people were like in the gym on the treadmill or something like that. That was kind of interesting. Today, we're going to talk about sales. You know, as they say, nothing happens until somebody sells something. People put a lot, probably far too much faith in their passion, or as Simon Sinek says, you've got to know your why, which I don't really agree with. I think he's awesome, but I think you have to know their why. Right? You have to know what's important to them. I don't think people buy from you because you're passionate about something. They buy from you because they need something, and you can fill that need better than others. So I'm excited to talk to Jason Cutter today. Let me read his quick bio, then we'll say hi officially. He's the CEO of Cutter Consulting Group. He's a mindset and scalability expert. And even though he didn't have a sales upbringing or background, we're going to learn more about that. He knows what it takes to be successful in sales and build profitable teams. He's got books, podcasts. He works with clients and focus on helping them close more deals, make more money, produce scalable results. And we'll talk more specifically about the other books that he has. Jason, thanks and welcome to the show today.
I am super excited, David. Thanks for having me. And yes, for everyone, make sure to watch the video. David's hair is spot on.
That's what I'm saying. I know. That's what I was saying. You know,
definitely don't watch it for me, but watch it for David.
Oh, no. Handsome men on the show today. We don't have to talk about hair anymore. Let's talk. First of all, tell me about your background. As I was reading and saw some of your podcasts and other things as well, this background in marine biology. I want to hear about your clearance, your top security clearance, and what led you to all of this. And then we'll talk more in depth for our audience about some of the things that are working today, about why we should not focus on the sales experience. But give us a little bit about your background first.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I have a bachelor's degree in marine biology from UC Santa Cruz. I spent years tagging sharks in and around that area. And the punchline statement about my childhood relative to people is that at one point I was the 19-year-old standing on a 21-foot boat, guarding the bait so the sharks didn't eat it. We were being surrounded by 3 18-foot great white sharks at the time. And that was still a better, smarter, safer choice than dealing with humans in my mind.
Yeah, I think many entrepreneurs would feel the same. And was there an epiphany? What caused the change? You lose a limb?
No. I had an inkling and a desire to have some cool non-life-threatening shark bite scar that I could take with me. But, it's tough to really plan that accordingly. So I never really fulfilled that. No, I mean, my 2 loving parents, they're still together to this day. My mom was a banker and in finance before she retired. My dad was an engineer and then moved his way up before he retired. So I have 2 analytical parents. My mom, as a banker, and just what she saw, hated salespeople. Still hates gross salespeople, but she appreciates the one who do it right. So she hated that. I was also shy, awkward, bullied, late bloomer, only child that didn't fit in anywhere. And so that combination led me to anything but careers with people. I fought it for a while, but it turned out I got a job at a restaurant as a busser, and it turned out, okay, I was okay with people and then a server. Still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Marine biology didn't go anywhere because I needed more school, and I decided not to do that. One thing led to another. I was in Seattle doing tech support while that was still a thing in the US. Realized that wasn't my thing. And then at 27, I fell into something that is sales, but it was the mortgage business 2002, which at that time with the real estate boom and interest rates, it was pure order taking. We joked about you don't even have to show up much and you're going to make six figures. So I learned nothing about sales, even though I was in a sales role. I just saw it as helping people. And for years, I even now, I don't think of what I do as sales, because sales to me is still that dirty word that people don't like.
Sure. And back in the day,
help shift.
Right. And back in the day, you were probably like, this is so easy. I have so nailed this. It's like parents with their first kid, and the first kid is just perfect. And they see somebody else with a kid who's crying, and they're going, oh, they clearly don't understand what we do. When did it hit you that it wasn't as easy as shooting fish in a barrel?
So I was in the mortgage business for a few years. Still, things were raging. And I was like, this is boring and unfulfilled, and I don't enjoy this. And people around me are like, are you stupid? Like, you're walking away from gold mining when there's a gold rush. And I'm just like, yeah, this doesn't feel, I don't enjoy helping people get into large amounts of debt. It's just me. I don't enjoy it. I don't think most people should do it. I don't think it's responsible.
Makes sense.
So many reasons. And I was like, yeah, I'm not interested. So I went into business with a friend of mine, and we were helping people who were in foreclosure, about to lose their houses, try to help keep their house, save their house, sell it before, anything but the sheriff coming at 10 a.m. to kick them and their stuff out. That's when I realized that should be easy. That should be easier than anything, because that person wants help or they're going to be homeless. Then what I realized is, no, that person is deeply addicted to their house and their habits and their behaviors. And that if they haven't fixed it by now, that's a hard one. And that's when I started studying persuasion, studying even addiction things. And how do you get someone to, that first step is admitting you have a problem. And that's when I realized, like, okay, I still didn't call it sales because I thought sales was gross, but I'm like, okay, this is effort.
Most people look at sales that way, or you hear sales and you think the guy with the white belt and the white shoes and the plaid jacket saying, well, what's it going to take to get you in this car? Tell me about when you started doing this more effectively. What were the aha moments, and how did that manifest in some of the sales work that you did and the teams that you worked with? Because you actually, I mean, you're humble in that you don't have a formal background or training, but you've done sales for a long time.
I have. And it's interesting because as I've gone into various roles in leadership, at first being pushed into it, just against my will, if you will, is realizing, okay, breaking down what works, what I do that works. And really it's that process of trying to figure out, like you said in the intro, where somebody has a need, where is it that somebody could use help, needs something, wants something, and then do I have that thing? And if I do, then really the gloves are off. It's like, how do I help you get unstuck? If I can't help you, send you on your way. There's 7 billion people on the planet. I don't have to twist your arm. Like, I don't need that. And realizing, like, yeah, so it was in those foreclosure era days, which, was spanned about 5 years, where I realized it. And then here was the big trick. Here was the huge aha for me, is I went to work for a company where we did it all over the phone instead of face-to-face, which I had been raised on. And I was like, that's impossible. You can't sell over the phone, because I was raised face-to-face and you had to do everything face-to-face. And then it was like, no, we have to do it over the phone. Anybody in the country, doesn't matter. And then built a process that effectively moved someone towards some kind of solution that they felt good about, that worked for the company and was profitable at scale over the phone. That's when I realized, okay, yeah, I figured out some basics with this for sure.
Okay, devil's advocate. There's no shortage of people, professionals, authors, speakers, companies who teach sales. Sales is probably the oldest profession, older than the other one that people reference from time to time. What is it that people don't get? What is it that organizations, and maybe it's just something that used to work that no longer does, but what's the biggest mistakes that you see salespeople and their employers making?
That is a huge question, thinly veiled as this really simple, easy sounding question that you've thrown out there. Try not to take up the rest of the program.
No, but you're fine. No, go ahead. I mean, what do others
Yeah.
get wrong? I mean, because there's no shortage of people who espouse knowledge in this.
Yeah.
What's different? What are they doing wrong?
I think one of the biggest things that organizations do wrong is they think that if I just hire the right people and I let them loose, they'll know what to do and they'll make it rain, right? And if they don't work out, and if they're not the right people, I will just fire them and continue to hire people until I get enough butts and seats that are the right people. It's like a sports organization like basketball thinking, all right, all I got to do is find 12 superstars and literally we can just sit back. We don't have to practice. We don't have to do training. I don't have to worry about anything. I just sit back and count the money because I got 12 LeBrons on the team, which is not possible. It's not scalable. It implodes because too many personalities and egos.
Sure.
You can't scale that. So that's the first thing. And it's usually a result of people at the top who were once in sales and they were superstars and they think everyone else sees the world like they do. So just find a whole bunch of people like them who think they're amazing and great at sales and talking people into stuff. And that's great, which when I see organizations take that approach, it might work. They have lots of up and down. They have huge turnover problems. They have terrible compliance issues. And to your side of the house, which is what your focus is, customer service nightmares all day because of what was promised and said or not promised and not said from the sales side. And it's
makes sense. So is there a disconnect? And it's a leading question because I already know the answer. A disconnect between oftentimes what superstar salespeople sell, say, promise, and leaving somebody else to deliver it
all day, right? I mean, it is unfortunate side of it too. It's part of human nature. Most people only care about themselves. The kind of personality that defaults into sales and is hired into sales and is just let loose without any accountability will mostly focus on themselves, right? I'm not saying everyone in sales. I'm just saying that kind of person. And then what happens is they're just doing whatever it takes to close that deal, usually either over-promising or under-promising, leaving out details, talking about how amazing it is. I mean, here's the thing. No product or service is without fault. I don't care who you are. There's always a trade-off. Either it's really expensive or there's something someone's not going to like. That's a trade-off. Good, fast, and cheap. 2 out of the 3, never all 3. And so then that just leads to somebody who gets over to the other side, implementation, onboarding, and they're like, well, they didn't tell me about this, or that's not what I thought I was getting. And so that caused a lot of issues.
But doesn't the company... No, you go ahead and finish.
I was going to say the other part for your initial question is, and here's one of the big changes, and this is what I see literally so many organizations still do not get over the phone, in person, at trade shows, conferences, door to door. It doesn't matter. People, classic old school sales mentality, which is let me do what I do best and I'll just talk people into things, still think this is pre-internet era when the company and the salesperson controls the power because they control the knowledge and information, and you have to go through them to get knowledge and information. Right. It wasn't too long ago. We were joking and talking about before we jumped on here, about, back in our day kind of a conversation. It wasn't too long ago where if you wanted to know anything about a car, right, or the price of a car, you had to wait for the newspaper, maybe get an auto trader, depending how old you are, or go to a dealership and roll the dice and risk life and limb dealing with a salesperson to try to find that out. Now, everybody is equipped with all the world's knowledge and information. Yep. So salespeople, it's no longer their job to lecture, to tell, to monologue. They still do it, but they're absolutely wrong in their approach and absolutely missing the mark of what people actually want in 2022.
Well, let's talk about that disconnect then, because I talk about that as well, right? We walk into a dealership now, we know everything about the car, right? We know that there are features and benefits and trim package available and competing models from others as well. We probably know what the dealer paid for the car before we walk in the door, right? And we go in armed. We're not going to pay more. How do you suggest? Let's go to away from the diagnosis into the prescriptive part. How do smart people deal with that differently today, recognizing that we have more information. Doesn't mean it's always accurate, right? Armed with information, but going from that process of selling to recognizing that we are going to buy, as opposed to going for them to sell to us. How do you counsel your clients, train others to approach that interaction differently?
So there's a main shift. Classic sales, right? Using sales in those terms of what we're talking about is a push model. It is I have something. I now have you and you have a pulse. I'm going to push you across the finish line one way or another. Sometimes manipulation, sometimes persuasion. I mean, even companies don't like to hear this, but hey, if you buy today before the quarter ends, we'll give you 10% off. That's manipulation, right? They don't like to agree. I think all those
some may call it
probably going to fall
incentive.
apart.
Right.
But you're bribing them to take action today for your reasons, not tomorrow for their reasons, right? Like,
right.
And that's what companies don't want to admit because they just want to keep doing, they want to play this game over and over again. So the difference is instead of pushing sales and pushing people to buy, and again, not the people like to buy versus being sold. I mean, just like the strategy of pushing. You want to be a leader as a salesperson, no matter what your role is, and you want to pull people along the journey with you. And to do that takes this radical shift that I've been talking about a lot over the last year. Is most people in sales and most companies think they are the hero in the story. They're there to save the day. Their brochure, their website, the scripting, the monologues, the fact that when you call and talk to a salesperson or show up in a trade show booth, they will monologue for 3 to 5 minutes about how amazing they are and how everyone wants it. And you want it. And it's like, wait, who's the hero? You or me? The problem is that every human sees themselves as the hero of their own journey. And there can only be one hero in a story. And the customer is always right, which means they are always the hero, which means you, the salesperson, are either the sidekick, Han Solo, or you're the bad guy who also thinks he's a hero, Darth Vader, and you're going to lose.
Right.
So instead of trying to be the hero, great professional salespeople, again, doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, doesn't matter what you're selling. When you go into guide mode, you should be the guide and see yourself as the guide, which is what is your issue and goal? How do I help you? Can I help you? Do I have the solution in getting you up the mountain safely? Great. Follow me. I'll get you there. And then people will just follow you, right? It's about leadership as a guide instead of I'm the keeper of knowledge and information, and I'm going to push you, and I'm going to get through 3 no's or 7 no's or 42 yeses or whatever. No, just be a guide.
Right. And let's back up a little bit, because I think it's really important because certainly everybody who's listening or watching this right now doesn't have that traditional sales model, right? We've come from a lot of different industries. And to reiterate what we talked about earlier, there is nothing inherently wrong. Everything you buy was sold. Now, whether you're walking down the aisles of the grocery store and you're purchasing and selecting it yourself or somebody else, I don't know that very few people are really intending to be manipulative in a Wolf of Wall Street kind of a fashion. Everybody's just trying to feed their families. Those people work for organizations, by and large, I believe what they have is really useful, really beneficial. They're selling, some cooling unit for a warehouse. A lot of it B2B sales. Most of who I'm dealing with are in the B2B world as well. Yeah. It's just some of the tactics are less effective today. So tell me for those who recognize that, and there's no shortage of people who are espousing similar philosophies. Nobody wants to be tacky in all of this. What do you think customers want today from their salespeople to build? Every organization says, for us, it's about the relationship. Customers rarely say that. Organizations want the relationship. Customers just want their needs met. And the relationship comes as a result of that, right? What do customers today, post-pandemic, what do they want from that representative who is across the transaction from them?
2 things. They want to feel like they are the hero and it's all about them and not the salesperson and not the company.
Tell me what that looks like practically. So it's a great slogan.
Practically, it's okay, David. So tell me about your situation. What are your goals? What do you have? Like, depending on what you're selling. Okay. Sure. So based on that, here's what I recommend for you. Not, okay, now let me tell you how amazing we are. Here's all the stuff we do. Everyone else is doing it. You should do it. It's actually that consultative sales approach. Again, no matter what you're selling. I work with companies who have offshore call centers selling lower price items where it's still the same. Everyone wants to be treated special, and it's about them, and they're the hero. They want someone to listen. And then here's the other part, right? So focusing on them is important, and that's valuable. And it's a huge mindset shift for so many people.
Sure.
The other part is what they're really looking for is wisdom, not knowledge and information. What they really want is wisdom applied to their situation.
Filtered through their situation. Right.
Yeah. If you filtered through their situation, which is why when we're talking about, one of the things I wrote in my book, Selling with Authentic Persuasion, there's a chapter on there in there about sales malpractice, which, like a doctor, right? It's prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. So
Love
many
the saying.
salespeople
Yep.
jump into it and go, all right, here's what you need because this is what I'm selling and everyone needs this. And I don't really care what you need because I'm selling this and you need it. Instead of going through like a doctor would. Here's the problem with sales, David, and this is the biggest issue, is it's not a profession. There's no governing body. There's no entrance exam. There's no testing. There's no requirements. There's no code of ethics. There's no malpractice insurance. There's nothing. There's a bunch of people who, just like me, when I started in the mortgage business, got hired, sat down, and I'm literally with no training and no licensing in mortgage at the time in Washington State, helping people get into the biggest debt of their life.
Right. And it's, well, and here's the other thing is, and I love the approach, and it's not that your content about your products and services is unimportant. It's only important as it relates to them and their problem and their issue. And when you can have that kind of an authentic conversation, right? But all right, let's go to the reality of today. Not every transaction allows for an interaction, right? We look at banks who all believe that their competitive advantage is the relationship they have with their customers. Well, now 95% of my transactions, I take a picture of the check and I deposit it, or I transfer money to my daughter off in school. They're scrambling to try and determine what is their true competitive advantage. So from a sales perspective, and not everybody who's listening or watching identifies them as a salesperson, although we all have to sell what it is that we offer. How do we, in this new era, as an organization, how do we change our mindset when we need to sell to our audience? We need them to buy from us, but we don't have the benefit of a face-to-face. It's one of the biggest challenges today. What's your response?
So I think one of the biggest mistakes that companies make is thinking they can sell some kind of considered purchase, which would mean something where it's like significant, or they have to make a decision, not price point related, but like decision related, right? Like changing banks, that's a considered purchase. Like if I'm going to do that, like there's going to be something, right? For some people, it could be joining $100 a month, shirt membership. Other people, it's, a car. So a considered purchase where there's like pros and cons, and it's not necessarily for everybody. The mistake that so many companies do is they want to try at scale to get people to make the right decision without an actual conversation. They want to do it with email. They want to do it with text. They want to do it with chatbots, and you can't. If you have a commodity, good luck, go for it, right? Which is what you're talking about.
Right. And then it's volume at that point. But you're right. But professional services. Yeah.
Correct. Right. Like banking is a commodity. I don't care what the banks think about how amazing the banks are. It is a commodity. I have
no shortage of choices.
I could get one there. I don't care. I don't have to be loyal to you. So if you're trying to do that at scale without an actual conversation over the phone, video, in person, you're just spinning the wheel. If you want to do it differently, then it's about having a conversation, but also making it about them. I've been in some banks where they take a great approach where they talk to me about what my goals are and then make some good choices. I've also been in some gross banks where as soon as I walk up to the counter, they're trying to get me cards because they have their quota and they really don't care about me. They just care about their numbers. And so it's really about that. It's about, you have to have a conversation, and very few people want to buy a house and get a mortgage online unless they're really experienced. They want to talk to somebody. They need a professional. They want help, but they're scared because they're worried about what a self-motivated salesperson or company is going to do versus giving them the right advice.
Right. And having the conversation. But there's a great line that says, the opposite of talking isn't listening. The opposite of talking is waiting to talk. Right. And we've all had conversations with people who are just and like they're saying, basically finish up really quickly what you're saying, because I have something that I want to say. And it makes it very difficult when you realize that person, sometimes I'll be on the phone with somebody, I'll say, please don't read the script. Listen to what I'm saying. I'll say this and they'll say, well, I understand, Mr. Avrin, how frustrating that must. No, you don't, because you don't really understand the issue that I have. A lot of organizations, especially those who attempt to scale, call centers and others as well, they're so buried in the script that they're just waiting for the next thing for them to say, as opposed to listening to what you're saying. It's maddening, right? The scripts are maddening. And they all say, yes, I understand how frustrating, or they go to the next step. How do you break them of that habit?
One of it is a corporate culture and mindset from the top down in what you see as valuable within your staff. Some companies, and again, you're customer service expert on your side of the house and organizations as a whole. So I know that this is something you share as well, is, if a company from the top down just sees people in call centers as expendable and salespeople as expendable, or not smart enough, because I've seen those organizations where these people are not smart enough to be trusted on their own. So they have
we have to regiment their script and everything. Right. Frustrating.
Then there's nothing you can do, because that's from the top down. Now, what I will say, and this is where I am different than a lot of people out there and a lot of companies, they don't hire me because they do not like the thought of it. I am pro script. I am pro process. I am pro systems, like accountability. I'm pro everything that pure classic salespeople who just want to get let loose, they can't stand it. But I see those as tools and boundaries and support systems to help someone do what we still need them to do in 2022, which is be a human, having a conversation with a scared, messy, confused human, and help them make the right decision. So scripts, when done right, with the right mindset, like, it's the guidelines for the conversation, it's scripted stuff. And then it's that person in your call center understanding, like, the script gets me here, and now listen, and then adjust and have this conversation and go back.
Sure. And that's, of course, the best way to look at any of that. It avoids anarchy, right? You talked before about having a team full of LeBron James, and the companies who have a competitive sales culture can be very profitable, but it's very difficult internally. Dave Logan talks about that in tribal leadership, right? That what's a level 1 tribe, a level 2, and I think a level 3 tribe is the sales culture, and the internal conversation is, I'm great, you suck, right? And then there's the competitive, and they've got the leaderboard and everything else. And the bean counters like it. And when you really take a step back, and especially in today's world, it's certainly less effective. Tell me really quickly, in a couple of minutes we have left, about the book. And I know it's not necessarily your most current, but most relevant here. Talk to me about reasons not to focus on the sales experience. Where did that title come from?
So I wrote that with a friend of mine, Nick Glimsdahl, who also wrote one, Reasons Not to Focus on the Customer Experience, and then also the Employee Experience. And we did some podcast stuff together. And I was like, we need to write one for sales. And obviously the punchline for anyone listening and paying attention, because they're going to think, okay, what are the reasons? There are no reasons. Like, literally, there are no reasons not to focus on the sales experience, which is the point of the book.
Got it.
So the book is really a conversation starter, and it is 10 chapters with questions about 10 parts of an organization that you should focus on within sales. And then it's mostly just space for you to write out what you should be building for your organization. And it's the common areas that companies don't like to focus on, because they think, oh, we don't need to focus on recruit. We're not closing enough deals. It's not recruiting. That's the problem. It's, I got to add more spiffs. No, it's, who are you hiring? How are you hiring? How are you training them?
Sure.
All of these things that organizations don't realize lead to it. So was a super fun project. I love it. It's a great conversation starter. It's great to take into an organization. We have companies, Nick and I that have worked with separately, where they're like, all right, we'll take 50 of these, come in and do a workshop for our team and help us build a world-class sales experience and operation instead of just, I call it playing sales.
We're talking to Jay Cutter here. Jay, one last question. What do you think is the real competitive advantage? What's the primary competitive advantage today in a time of essentially parity, commodity? Everybody's good. I mean, if they weren't good, they wouldn't survive today with all of the online resources for complaining about them. What's the real competitive advantage you're seeing with the organizations that you're working with?
It is that sales experience, right? The big difference is having a sales experience that people enjoy as a customer, because so many of us can think about times when we're a customer in our lives. We walk into a store, a restaurant, whatever, and we have a great experience. And we're like, that felt so different than A, what I've experienced before, and B, what I was worried was going to happen.
Sure.
Right? On any end of the spectrum. And so when you do that, when that sales experience feels different and it's about that customer, it will immediately set you apart from most everybody out there. And what I'll tell you, when times get tough in your industry, like right now, mortgage rates have gone up. So many mortgage companies now actually have to work for a living and figure out how do they find customers and keep them. That's the difference, right? You can't just be a commodity low rate company. You have to give a good experience that people are like, that was amazing. And I want to tell my friends and family, and I'm super happy with it. And that makes the whole process easier.
Perfect. If people want to get a hold of you, Jason Cutter, learn about more of your books and others as well, how do they get in touch with you?
Easiest thing, if you want to know more information, I have some ebooks too that I'm always happy to send about overcoming objections and building teams and motivating teams. You can email me, jason@cutterconsultinggroup.com. Again, jason@cutterconsultinggroup.com. And then for a hub for everything from the printed books to the podcast, jasoncutter.com is a great starter hub for that and all of my social media links.
Perfect. And we will put that in the show notes as well. Jason, thanks for taking the time to chat. Hang on to the other side. We will chat in a moment here. You can also pick up a copy of my new book as I grab it. Where is it? Here it is. It's called The Morning Huddle: Powerful Customer Experience Conversations to Shake You Up, or Wake You Up, Shake You Up, and Win More Business. In fact, all of my books are available on Amazon.com. Be sure to click to like this podcast. Please click to like it, subscribe, and leave your comments. Comments are really important as well. You can click the little bell icon to receive notifications of new episodes. And you can learn more about my speaking, my consulting on customer experience. I've spoken in 24 countries around the world. Just look me up at davidavrin.com. Thanks for tuning in. This is Customer Experience Advantage Podcast. Remember, leave a comment. Big thanks to my guest, Jason Cutter. I'm David Avrin. Be good.
This has been the Customer Experience Advantage Podcast with David Avrin. Feel free to leave a comment and be sure to hit the thumbs up button. You can listen to past episodes and be notified of future ones by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. David's popular marketing and customer experience books are available in print, as well as Kindle and audiobook, and published in multiple languages around the world. You can stay connected and learn more at davidavrin.com. Thanks for tuning in.